Kendall Rogers joining us at 5 o'clock like he has every Tuesday all season long. Kendall, thank you for your time yet again. Let's start here, though. For all the conversation about how the committee got things wrong and the debate over that, what is the thing that you look at that they got the most correct?
I would say this. I think they did a really good job of seeding for the most part. I think if you look around the regionals, so one way I kind of determine how well or how balanced the regional field is by, when I go pick them, are they difficult to predict? And I will tell you this, I went and filled out our bracket on a bracket challenge, and I bet you half the regionals I was really torn on. And when I got to the super regional round, I was like, man, I could go either way with almost all of these. So a lot of times you don't have fields like that where they're balanced. And this year you do. I do feel like the committee did a pretty good job of where they put teams and the way they seeded them and things like that. But there's no doubt there's some seedings that were a little screwy, like, for instance, Duke and Mississippi State, where they were obviously not seeded because they weren't a top 16 team. I thought both of those teams were very worthy of being top 16 seeds.
Kendall, I'll ask the question I think that it's on everybody's mind. How dare you?
Sure. Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is, here is the reality of the situation. Is if the SEC is going to get 11 teams in, there's going to have to be something that goes against the SEC, right? When you're politicking in the committee room. So that means that you're probably not getting that last hosting spot. So, on one hand, that's what I think. That's what I believe, and I'd be shocked if I'm wrong on that. The other thing, too, is I think when Arizona won the Pac-12 championship, both the regular season and then won the tournament, I think that really shook some things up. I think the committee kind of took a step back and said, listen, man, we know that Arizona's RPI is 31, but, they won both their championships, so they should be a top 16. I don't really have an issue with Arizona. I think their RPI skewed in a bad way. I think they're a really solid team that, after winning both championships, should have been a top 16. The one I'm iffy on is just East Carolina. They stumbled down the stretch, got swept. They got swept late in the year by Tulane. Did not play well in the conference tournament. They're banged up, and we all know the committee takes injuries into account. And I actually think their resume measured up to Mississippi State, or Duke for that matter. Both those teams, Duke 20 wins in the ACC, Mississippi State 20-plus wins on the SEC, and then you had East Carolina's resume. I just didn't think it compared. And the fact of the matter is, I'll say it again, John Gilbert, the East Carolina AD, was on the committee, and I have zero doubt that was kind of the deciding factor here, because every single committee member that had a bubble team or had somebody in an empty spot got what they wanted.
So then let's look at where Mississippi State's headed, to this Charlottesville regional. What I said today on the Thunder and Lightning podcast was that if the best version of Mississippi State shows up, then they can walk away and go to the super regionals from this regional. But if the team we saw last week in Hoover that just couldn't find the timely hit from Dakota Jordan and Hunter Hines shows up, they probably won't make it out. Do you agree with that assessment, that if State plays their best, they can win this regional?
I 100% agree. I really do. I think if you look at what they've done or what they're capable of, one of the big question marks coming into the year was, could they pitch enough, right? And I think if you look at especially the front of the rotation, I feel great about that. Cal Steven once again looked fantastic last weekend in the SEC tournament. But in order for them to win this regional, I felt like State was kind of really neat. Obviously give Hijack a lot of credit for the week that he had in Hoover. But, tell you what, you are living on borrowed time if you're just waiting for Connor Hijack to get you a game-winning hit, 2 games a week. So I think for them to win this regional, they'll need guys like Dakota Jordan to kind of dial things in a little bit. The fact that he was struggling enough where they had to take him out of the game, I thought was interesting. So I think he responds well. I think he's a kid that ultra competitive, obviously an elite hitter. I think he'll be fine this weekend. Not to be too spoiler here, but I've got Mississippi State getting to the College World Series, so I kind of hope they do play well this weekend.
Well, Kendall, I'm shocked. I thought you hated Mississippi State. What's going on here?
Only on Mondays and Wednesdays.
Ah, okay, good. Well, a good thing we have you on Tuesdays then. Let's look at Southern Miss. This is another one where, for me, I don't understand how the seeding works because Southern Miss, to me, is one of the better 2 seeds in this tournament. I would have them there with State, with LSU, Indiana State, and yet they're shipped off to Knoxville to play the number 1 overall seed. What's the logic behind where the committee has put USM?
That's a great point. Dude, I'm with you. I was talking to NCAA today, or for an NCAA podcast today, and I actually think Tennessee has a similar tough draw. I mean, you compare it to like A&M, for instance, who has to get through the California schools to get to Omaha. I mean, you look at Tennessee, Indiana has a really solid team, the 3-hole. I mean, they played really well the last half of the season. I don't think they're going to have a chance to win a regional. I just don't think they have the arms. But, I mean, they're talented. Southern Miss, the thing about Southern Miss is, I mean, there's not going to be a team that's more like acquainted with Tennessee style than Southern Miss after playing them last year. So I think after playing them last year, you got a team who's older. You got a team who has a really good 1-2 punch. Has a really good frontline guy, Billy Oldham, and obviously Billy's probably going to start against Indiana. But you get my drift here. I mean, it's a team that will not be intimidated or remotely scared of Tennessee. So I think that's a tough draw for Tennessee. And I also think even if they advance, to have to get through potentially Wake Forest and Chase Burners to get to Omaha, I mean, that's a pretty tough road for the 1 seed.
What's the region or the regional to you where the biggest upset potential exists for the 1 seed? We've talked about Mississippi State, and I don't know that we would really consider that an upset. Is there a regional where you look at the 2 seed and you go, nobody's talking about them, but they could win this region?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of them. I think Kentucky. I mean, Kentucky's played at a really consistent level all year, but Indiana State. Again, when I look at the college baseball postseason, I always go after the older teams. In Indiana State's a really old team. They got to a super regional last year. They feel snubbed going into this weekend. I would keep an eye on those guys this weekend. I think Duke and the Norman Regional. I think the Norman Regional is really competitive. I think Connecticut's always really good. ORU, who was just in Omaha last year. They've had a weird year. I mean, their RPI is 266, and they played really well the last couple of weeks. They've got some holdovers from that Omaha team, so those guys in the 4 slot. And then you got Duke at number 2. I think Duke is a really, really good team. I mean, Ben Miller had an awesome weekend at the ACC tournament. Devin Obie had some big hits as they won the ACC tournament over Florida State. I actually had Duke winning that regional, so I actually think Norman, to me, is the toughest. I would not be shocked at an upset in the first game with OU, and obviously I'm picking Duke there.
So let's go back to something you said. You said you have State going to Omaha. That means you have them going through Fayetteville in the Super Regional to beat Arkansas. That was a very competitive series just a few weeks ago.
MSU should have won that series.
That's what I was going to get. State not only could have won, they could have swept. They had opportunities to do that, but that's kind of been State's MO this year is the would have, could have wins and losses. That's why they're not hosting. What is it about that potential matchup that makes you favor Mississippi State this time around?
Yeah, I tell you what, I'm just really concerned about Arkansas's offense. In even series they've won, if you watch their offense, it's really they've got to run in the ball. I saw them against A&M twice a couple weeks ago in College Station, and it just felt like they were not winning unless Hudson White or Wahiva Aloy ran into a ball with the guys on base. If that didn't happen, they were just going to get solo home runs, and that was all the scoring they were going to do. So Arkansas is one of those teams that you pretty much have to let them kind of get on a roll for them to score some runs. And I just think Mississippi State's going to be dialed in this postseason, man. I think actually not hosting as awesome as it is for the fans, I actually think it's less pressure for the players to actually get on the road. Charlottesville, I think, is perfect. And so I like their chances there. And then going to Arkansas, I mean, nothing there is going to intimidate them. They could have won a series. They could have swept a series there. They know they can go head-to-head with those guys. And the belief of knowing you can beat someone is very important in the postseason.
We only have about a minute left here, Kendall. Does the number 1 curse continue this year, or will Tennessee finally break through and win that national championship?
I have got Tennessee winning the national championship. I think this team's different. They're not as mouthy as past Tennessee teams. They're way more professional and focused. They don't have the superstars in the mound that they're used to, but they have nice depth in the mound, and of course their offense is awesome. I don't know, they just had a very professional-like showing in Hoover, and I expect that to continue over the next few weeks.
Kendall, thank you so much for your time, man, and all season long as well. Always excellent stuff.
You got it, man. Yeah, good luck to the Dogs and Eagles this weekend.
Appreciate that. That's Kendall Rogers,
Thanks,
D1 Baseball, D1Baseball.com. Subscribe.